In the media today in Japan, the question of national race and ethnic minorities is a current issue. Amid the news of US-based incidents or the economic crises due to the appreciation of the yen, issues and movements of minority peoples in Japan are reported. Prime Minister Nakasone's arguments for a monoethnic, totally assimilated race state presents the new form of Japanese ideology. His Secretary of State follows the argument by stating that there are no minorities in Japan. But facts belie the ideology of pure race monoethnicism in Japan, which the TV government leaders are selling so hard. Coverage of the National Conference of Minority Peoples in Japan speaks of the actual variety within the Japanese society. The Minority Rights Group in London estimates that over 4% of Japan's population should be viewed as minorities. The obvious minorities are the native peoples of Japan, the Ainu, the early colonialized people of the Ryukyu Kingdom, the Okinawans, the discriminated outcast people, the Buraku, and the formerly colonialized conscripted people of Korea, Taiwan, and China. The report described the special event held in Hokkaido, the northern island of Japan, which brought together representatives of those four main groups. About 70 came from various parts of Japan to exchange information, to share concerns, and to build up links for solidarity in action. Acknowledged was the strong desire of the participants for the integrity of their people to counter the denigrating enforcement of assimilation to the monoethnicism of the Japanese state. The promoters of this public, culturally diverse gathering provided ample opportunities for participants to freely express their various cultural heritages and lifestyles. Greetings were brought to the whole gathering by Okinawan representatives, such as Reverend Kinjo, and also from Ainu representatives. Encouragement was given through the greetings and participation of the World Council of Church Program to Combat Racism representative, as well as by ecumenical international participation, including an Inuit woman from Greenland. In the intensive presentations made in the study groups, the issues and hopes in the present context of Japanese neo-nationalism and chauvinistic trends were dealt with more analytically. From the struggles as minorities, songs were sung in lament, some in anger, and some in celebration. The exchanges both evenings were a small cultural festival with Korean and Ainu dances, folk plays, and poet readings. The cultural sharing was a special experience, especially as it provided a chance to see Ainu dancing in an intimate setting. The traditional forms of the Okinawan culture, one of which is the Asa drum dance, was something to which all could kick up their heels. The closing comment by Mr. Tomoyose, who took the footage for this special news report, was that differences between people and cultural differences should be recognized as integral to Japanese society and acknowledged correctly for what they mean for the whole Japanese people. That there are many ethnic and cultural traditions on these islands. Another special on the minority issues was covered in this evening mini documentary. more detailed information was given about the conference. This picture was taken during the first national conference, which was held in Kyoto. This year was the second national conference, and plans were made at this year's conference to hold another larger gathering in Okinawa in 1987. Here is part of the group converging at the Hokkaido airport on the way to Sapporo for the opening rally. Sapporo is where the 3-day conference opened, with a public meeting participated by over 200 people. This is a windy street in Sapporo City. The involvement of the Christian churches, both locally and ecumenically, was of a serving, enabling nature. This is one of the organizers, Mr. Chung-il Lee, of the Korean Christian Center in Osaka. The director of the Program to Combat Racism of the World Council of Churches was able to participate as part of his program with the ecumenical survey team on the alien registration law fingerprinting refusal issue. The Chinese community was represented by a third-generation member, speaking of their resistance to the fingerprinting and struggle to maintain their ethnic dignity through language and cultural efforts. The Ainu representative told of their people's struggles to survive the legal suppression policies of the central rulers. Today, about 50,000 continue to live in villages in Hokkaido, and up to 100,000 are spread throughout Japan. From Okinawa, a representative shared the problems between cultural accommodation versus cultural integrity, specifying the problems of the military bases. A Korean poet illustrated the daily experiences, pains, and struggles of Koreans against systemic and legal discrimination. During the evenings, each other's dances, songs, and stories heightened the sense of pride and of solidarity. The Korean drum dance and fan dance reflected the colorful and exuberant nature of Korean community life. Among third and fourth generation Koreans, there is a growing desire for more confidence in their own cultural forms. An Inuit woman from Greenland was a special participant and described the culture and history of the Inuit people, known by Westerners as the Eskimo. The Inuit people's 3,000-year-old mask dance was a rare event, adding to the creative atmosphere and reinforcing the feelings of solidarity through the transcending power of cultural expression. 2 Okinawans and an American learned the rhythm in a cram practice session and accompanied her in her dance. After the heavy sessions, the evening hours were refreshing and liberating, renewing hearts and minds for future engagement. A common form of dance soon evolved and was accompanied by Okinawan drums and the shamisen, and was something all could join in. Spending this time together in the land where the Ainu are the native natural caretakers of community and cultural life, it was especially meaningful to learn from their stories and dances. The more serious part of the conference took place in the group reports and plenary discussion sessions. Some of the legal means for controlling and destroying the minorities' autonomous cultural development were discussed. The stories told reflected the prejudices and various systems of discrimination faced in Japanese society. The 680,000 Koreans in Japan are at various stages of struggle in themselves, in their community living, and in the tensions between Japan and Korea. The goal is to find a personal identity and cultural style true to their existence as Koreans in Japan. The strategies of the various struggles were shared, and areas of solidarity action sought. Part of the group made their way through the Hokkaido countryside with its many large ranches for a 2-day study trip. We traveled through land that was reminiscent of New England with its many forests on our way to one of the few remaining Ainu villages. Here is the interior of a traditional Ainu house, with its cooking fireplace and antler-like branches placed nearby as part of their religious customs. Ainu women sang and danced traditional forms on a time schedule, but this day was not going to be a usual one. The 160 Okinawans from an Ainu club in the southernmost tip of Japan happened to be here in the northernmost island. The Okinawans from our group seized the opportunity and put on a show for the group. The astonished visitors danced and cheered them on. The suspected common anthropological roots between Ainus and Okinawans is believable, as the Ainu woman on the left lines up next to the Okinawan woman. The Ainu leader was thrilled with the gathering and presented a memorial to the Okinawan group. These are the hills near Nibutani, a small Ainu town that has not been converted into a tourist village. Selling Ainu by the tourist industry today is continued exploitation, especially when one realizes that carvings and souvenirs are almost all made by Japanese. Here is a center where young people and old people can learn the Ainu language and study the cultural forms. Mr. Kayano, who is one of the 4 Ainu who are fluent in the Ainu language and knowledgeable of the traditions and ceremonies, said that from the Ainu experience, Japanese invasion and atrocities committed in Korea, Taiwan, and China was seen as a simple extension of the Japanese treatment of the Ainu, killing them, stealing land that Ainu were tending, stripping them of their language, lifestyle, and dignity. Mr. Kayano realizes that in order for the Ainu people to be recognized, the history and present plight must be known. Yet the Ainu people we spoke with are very critical of the academics researching Ainu who come in, squeeze them of knowledge, and take their fancy reports back to Tokyo to file away or make money on. Here are some of the traditional Ainu cultural forms of storage and housing and home appliances that Mr. Kayano has collected and helped make. The 3 other Ainu experts are all 85 years or older, so the 62-year-old Mr. Kayano carries a huge weight on his shoulders in his commitment to preserve the language, something he considers essential to the survival of the Ainu people and any oppressed minority. Yet his bright enthusiasm is contagious, and his 4-year-old grandson, with his growing ability in the Ainu language, is a beacon of hope for the future. Assimilation of the Ainu people through intermarriage, centralized Japanese education, intimidation, and belittling of their culture is something faced by all the minority groups. Despite the crucial importance of their own struggles, though, with their common experiences, the people were able to listen with both ears and hearts to each other's experiences and struggles. It is hard to believe that this is only the 2nd National Minorities Conference, judging from the enthusiasm and strong ties of solidarity building. The conference in Okinawa next year and the future beyond is definitely exciting.